There is a quiet truth that whispers itself into your life long before you have language for it, long before you can explain it to anyone else. And that truth is this: you were never meant to blend in. You feel it in moments when the world seems too loud for your sensitivity, too rushed for your depth, too shallow for your longing. You feel it when conversations skim the surface and something inside you aches for meaning, for essence, for the invisible currents beneath what everyone else calls reality. And if you are honest with yourself, you have felt this for as long as you can remember. This is not a flaw in you. This is not a defect of personality. This is the signature of a soul that arrived here with a different assignment. The chosen ones are not chosen by a crown or a ceremony or an external authority. They are chosen by an inner resonance, by a calling that cannot be silenced even when it is ignored. They are the dreamers who cannot stop imagining a kinder world, the seekers who cannot accept borrowed answers, the awakened souls who feel homesick for something they cannot name. And because their frequency is different, their path is different. They often walk alone, not because they are unlovable, but because they are tuned to a deeper channel of life. Loneliness, for the chosen one, is not a punishment. It is an initiation. It is the space in which the noise falls away and the real conversation can begin. When others drift away, when relationships fall apart without a clear villain, when the familiar structures dissolve, it can feel like rejection. But look more closely. What is really happening is that life is gently, sometimes firmly, removing what no longer matches who you are becoming. The soul does not grow in crowded rooms of constant validation. The soul grows in silence, in reflection, in those long stretches where you are left alone with your own truth. There is a moment on this path when the ego protests loudly. The ego says, something must be wrong with me. The ego counts likes, friends, invitations, approval, and tries to measure worth by external echoes. But you are not your ego, and your worth was never meant to be measured that way. The ego wants certainty, control, and constant reassurance. The soul wants expansion, alignment, and freedom. When you begin to live from the soul, the ego feels threatened, and it translates that threat into fear and loneliness. But beneath that discomfort is a profound recalibration taking place. Think of the seed buried in the dark soil. It is alone. It is unseen. There is no applause for its struggle. Yet it is precisely in that darkness that it gathers strength, that it reaches downward and upward at the same time, that it prepares to break through the surface and become something it could never have been if it had stayed exposed and comfortable. You are in that soil now. The quiet you feel is not emptiness, it is incubation. Chosen ones often experience early awakenings to pain, to injustice, to the fragility of life. They see through illusions sooner than others. They sense that chasing status, possessions, or approval cannot satisfy the deeper hunger within them. This awareness can be isolating. It can make you feel like a stranger in familiar places. But it is also what frees you from living a borrowed life. You are here to remember who you are beneath the conditioning, beneath the roles, beneath the masks you learn to wear to be accepted. When you walk alone, you begin to hear the subtle guidance that was always there but drowned out by external noise. You begin to recognize the difference between intuition and fear, between desire and distraction. You start to notice that your soul speaks in feelings, in quiet nudges, in moments of still knowing. The soul always knows, and it knows the way forward, even when the mind cannot map it out. There will be times when you look around and wonder why it seems easier for others, why they move in groups, why they appear so certain and supported. But remember, not all togetherness is connection, and not all solitude is loneliness. Many people stay busy to avoid meeting themselves. Many people stay surrounded to avoid the silence where truth waits. Your aloneness is not an absence of love. It is an invitation to a deeper, more authentic love that begins within. Healing begins within, and it often begins in solitude. When there is no one to distract you, you start to feel what you have been avoiding. Old grief rises, unspoken anger surfaces. Forgotten dreams knock again at the door of your awareness. This is not regression, this is integration. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel, and you cannot become whole while running from your own inner landscape. Walking alone gives you the courage to sit with yourself, to offer compassion where judgment once lived, to forgive yourself for not knowing what you did not yet know. Forgiveness is the path to freedom, and for the chosen one, forgiveness is not just about others. It is about releasing the resentment you hold toward life for being difficult, toward yourself for being different, toward the past for not matching your expectations. There are no justified resentments, because resentment chains you to the very thing you want to move beyond. When you forgive, you are not condoning what happened. You are choosing not to carry it forward. You are choosing lightness over bitterness, expansion over contraction. As you release the past, you discover a surprising truth. You are already enough. You do not need to prove your worth through suffering, achievement, or sacrifice. You do not need to earn your right to exist. Your being here is not an accident, and your uniqueness is not a mistake. The loneliness you have felt has been shaping you, refining your sensitivity, sharpening your awareness, teaching you to rely on inner guidance rather than external validation. The chosen ones are often called to lead, but not in the traditional sense. They lead by example, by presence, by embodying a different way of being. They become reminders of what is possible when a human being lives from alignment rather than fear. And leadership of this kind requires inner authority. It requires knowing who you are when no one is watching, trusting your path even when it is not understood, standing in your truth without needing to convince anyone else. There is a paradox here that the ego struggles to accept. The more you stop trying to fit in, the more you belong to yourself. And when you belong to yourself, you become a magnet for connections that are real, nourishing, and aligned. The solitude is not permanent, it is purposeful. It is the clearing of the ground so that what arrives next is not built on compromise or pretense, but on authenticity. Living in the now becomes essential on this path, because the mind will try to project your solitude into a permanent future or reinterpret it as a failure of the past. But life only unfolds in this moment. In this moment, you are breathing. In this moment, you are aware. In this moment, you are supported by an intelligence that beats your heart and moves the stars without your effort. When you anchor yourself in the present, the story of lack dissolves and a quiet gratitude begins to take its place. You may notice that as you walk alone, your sensitivity deepens. You feel more, see more, intuit more. This can be overwhelming at times, but it is also your gift. You are learning to trust your inner compass, to honor your energy, to say no to what drains you and yes to what feels alive. This discernment is part of your preparation. You are not being set apart to be superior, you are being set apart to be clear. The chosen ones are often misunderstood, not because they are confusing, but because they reflect back what others have not yet faced within themselves. Your presence can be unsettling to those who are still identified with their masks. Your questions can feel threatening to those who rely on certainty for security. This is not your responsibility to manage. Your responsibility is to remain true, gentle, and grounded in your own alignment. When the path becomes quiet, when there are fewer voices around you, listen carefully. The silence is teaching you how to hear yourself. It is teaching you how to sit in your own company without needing to escape. It is teaching you that peace does not come from being surrounded, but from being centered. In this quiet, you begin to sense your divine nature, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived experience of connection, meaning, and inner freedom. You are a divine being having a human experience, and that divinity does not require constant affirmation to exist. It simply is. When you remember this, the loneliness transforms. It becomes sacred space. It becomes a sanctuary where you reconnect with the source of your being. From this place, you no longer seek to be chosen by the world, because you know you are already chosen by life itself. And then, almost without effort, something shifts. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is being asked of me?" You stop trying to return to who you were, and you begin to step into who you are becoming. The alone time has done its work. It has stripped away what is false, strengthened what is real, and aligned you with a purpose that feels less like a job and more like a calling. The chosen ones walk alone for a time so that when they walk with others, they do so from wholeness rather than need. They love without attachment, serve without self-erasure, and connect without losing themselves. They know that their value does not fluctuate with circumstances, and their peace does not depend on external arrangements. If you are walking alone right now, trust that this is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your alignment with a deeper truth. You are being guided, even when it feels unclear. You are being supported, even when it feels quiet. And you are being prepared, even when it feels uncomfortable. Stay with yourself. Be gentle with your process. Honor the solitude without labeling it as lack. The path you are on is ancient and meaningful, and it leads not away from life, but into it. When the world misunderstands you, when others drift away, when the path becomes quiet, remember this: you are not lost. You are listening, you are not alone, you are aligning, and in that alignment, you are stepping into the freedom, the peace, and the purpose that were always meant to be yours. And as you remain with yourself in this sacred quiet, something even more subtle begins to unfold. You start to notice that the aloneness you once resisted is not cold or empty, but alive, intelligent, responsive. It listens to you. It answers you. It mirrors you back to yourself with an honesty that no crowd ever could. In this space, you are no longer performing, no longer adjusting your tone to be understood, no longer shrinking or stretching to belong. You are simply present. And presence, when allowed to deepen, becomes a doorway. Here is where the chosen one begins to recognize that walking alone was never about isolation from others, but about reunion with the self. The outer separations were merely reflections of an inner remembering. You are coming home to the part of you that existed before opinions shaped you, before expectations bent you, before fear taught you to doubt your own knowing. This remembering is gentle, but it is irreversible. Once you see that your value does not come from being needed, applauded, or understood, you cannot unsee it. A quiet strength takes root, one that does not announce itself, yet cannot be shaken. You may feel drawn now to simplicity, to fewer words, to deeper breaths, to moments that feel real rather than impressive. This is not withdrawal from life, it is refinement of life. The soul always moves toward what is essential. It sheds excess the way a tree releases dead leaves, not out of rejection, but out of wisdom. You are learning that energy is sacred, and where you place it determines what grows within you. Walking alone has taught you discernment, and discernment is love in its most mature form. There will be moments when the old world tries to pull you back with familiar patterns, familiar dramas, familiar roles, and you may feel a tenderness for who you used to be, the one who tried harder, explained more, tolerated less alignment just to avoid being alone. Bless that version of you. Do not judge it. It did exactly what it knew to do at the time, but you are not required to live there anymore. Growth does not ask for loyalty to outdated versions of the self. It asks for honesty. As this honesty deepens, you begin to feel a new relationship with uncertainty. Where fear once lived, curiosity now arises. Where anxiety once tightened your chest, a quiet trust begins to breathe. You no longer need to know how everything will unfold to feel safe. You sense, perhaps for the first time, that life is not happening to you, but through you. That you are not separate from the flow you once tried to control. This realization softens you. It humbles you. It frees you. And freedom, true freedom, is never loud. It does not demand attention. It does not need permission. It is the internal permission you give yourself to be as you are, where you are, without resistance. It is the release of the inner argument with reality. The chosen one eventually understands that peace is not found by arranging the world, but by aligning with it. When you stop insisting that life look a certain way to validate you, life begins to reveal its quiet generosity. You may notice now that your compassion has expanded, not in a sentimental way, but in a grounded, spacious way. You see others walking their own paths, carrying their own fears, acting from their own level of awareness. You no longer need to correct them or convince them. You simply allow them. This allowance is not indifference. It is maturity. It is the understanding that everyone is at a different point in their remembering, and that forcing insight only creates resistance. From this place, connection begins to return, but it arrives differently. It is no longer driven by need or loneliness, but by resonance. You recognize kindred spirits not by how much they fill the space, but by how peaceful you feel in their presence. There is no rush, no grasping, no urgency to define or secure. You trust that what is aligned will remain, and what is not will gently fall away without drama. This trust is not naivete. It is wisdom earned through solitude. The chosen ones do not walk alone forever, but they never walk unconsciously again. They carry the silence with them, even in conversation. They carry the stillness into movement. They have learned how to be with themselves, and this becomes the foundation for every relationship, every creation, every offering they bring into the world. They are no longer seeking to be completed because they have discovered their own wholeness. And so, if you find yourself here now, standing in this in-between space where the old no longer fits and the new has not fully arrived, rest. Do not rush the unfolding. Trust the intelligence that has guided you this far without a map. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where a soul of your depth must be to become what it came here to be. The path may still feel quiet at times, but it is no longer empty. It is filled with presence, with awareness, with a subtle joy that does not depend on circumstance. And as you continue forward, you may realize that what once felt like loneliness has transformed into companionship with life itself. You are walking, yes, but you are not alone. You are being carried by something vast, intelligent, and infinitely patient. This is why the chosen ones walk alone for a season, not to be diminished, but to be revealed, not to be separated from love, but to remember its source. And as you keep walking softly, honestly, awake to your own being, you become a quiet light, not trying to shine, simply unable not to. And in this gentle revealing, another truth rises to meet you, one that reshapes how you understand your own journey. You begin to see that the pauses, the gaps, the seasons of seeming stillness were never interruptions in your life. They were the curriculum. They were the moments when the outer world stepped back so the inner world could step forward and speak. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Even the ache you once labeled as loneliness was a teacher, quietly guiding you inward, away from noise and toward knowing. You start to sense that your life has been less about accumulation and more about subtraction, less about becoming someone new and more about remembering what was always there. Each time something fell away, it was not taken from you, it was released from you. Roles that no longer fit, relationships that no longer resonated, dreams that were born from expectation rather than truth. And with each release, a little more space opened inside you, space for clarity, space for peace, space for a deeper kind of joy that does not announce itself but steadily endures. There comes a moment when you realize that you no longer need to explain yourself. The urge to be understood softens, and in its place grows a quiet self-acceptance. You understand now that not everyone is meant to walk beside you, and that this does not diminish your worth or theirs. Different paths serve different awakenings. You are no longer offended by distance. You respect it. You see it as a natural expression of alignment rather than rejection. This is where inner freedom truly takes root. Freedom from the need to perform. Freedom from the need to compare. Freedom from the belief that your life must resemble anyone else's to be valid. You feel lighter, not because life has become effortless, but because you are no longer resisting it. You meet challenges with curiosity instead of dread, with presence instead of panic. You trust yourself now, not because you have all the answers, but because you have learned to listen. And listening changes everything. You listen to your body when it asks for rest. You listen to your heart when it whispers truth. You listen to your intuition when it gently redirects you away from what drains you and toward what nourishes you. This listening is an act of self-respect, and self-respect naturally gives rise to self-love, not the fragile kind that depends on praise, but the steady kind that remains even when you are unseen. As this love deepens, you notice something quietly miraculous. The world begins to respond differently to you, not because you demand it, but because your energy has changed. You are no longer pushing against life, and life no longer pushes back. Opportunities arise not from striving, but from alignment. Encounters feel purposeful, even when brief. There is a sense of being guided, of being met exactly where you are. You understand now that walking alone was never a sign that you were disconnected from life. It was a sign that you were being invited into a more intimate relationship with it. In the silence, you learn to hear. In the emptiness, you learn to trust. In the solitude, you learn to stand in your own presence without collapsing or hardening. These lessons are not visible to the world, but they are unmistakable within you. And so you continue, not with urgency, but with quiet confidence. You do not rush towards some imagined destination because you have discovered that the path itself is alive, responsive, and sufficient. Each step is enough. Each breath is enough. You are enough, not someday, not when something changes, but now as you are. The chosen ones do not walk alone because they are meant to suffer. They walk alone because they are meant to remember. And when remembrance takes hold, the loneliness dissolves into something far more enduring, a steady companionship with your own soul, and a deep, unshakable trust in the intelligence that moves all things, including you, exactly where they need to be. And now, as this understanding settles into you, not as an idea but as a felt knowing, there is a deep exhale that moves through your being. It is the release of the struggle to arrive somewhere else, to be someone else, to prove something that never needed proof. You sense that the journey has not been about finding your place in the world, but about allowing the world to find its place within you. This is the quiet turning point where seeking gives way to allowing. You recognize that the path of the chosen one is not marked by noise or spectacle, but by sincerity, by the willingness to stand naked before life without armor, without pretense, without the need to be carried by belief systems that no longer feel true. You have learned how to walk with uncertainty as a companion rather than an enemy, how to let questions remain open without demanding immediate answers. In this openness, wisdom flows naturally without effort. There is a gentleness now in the way you move through the world. Not a weakness, but a strength that comes from no longer needing to defend your existence. You do not rush to be seen because you are no longer afraid of being invisible. You do not cling to outcomes because you trust the unfolding. You have discovered that peace is not something you chase. It is something you uncover when you stop interfering with your own becoming. And in this peace, something extraordinary reveals itself. Gratitude without conditions. Gratitude not because everything turned out the way you wanted, but because everything shaped you into someone capable of presence, compassion, and depth. Even the moments that broke you open now feel like sacred thresholds. They stripped away what was false and revealed what was real. They taught you how to bend without breaking, how to feel without drowning, how to love without losing yourself. You begin to see that your aloneness was never a detour from love. It was love refining itself within you, teaching you how to source it internally rather than seek it externally, teaching you how to sit with yourself in silence and discover that you are not empty, not lacking, not abandoned, but full, connected, and held by something far greater than circumstance. And so you walk forward now, not alone in the way you once feared, but accompanied by a quiet certainty that cannot be shaken. A certainty that life is intelligent, that you are guided, that every step you take from this place of alignment sends a ripple into the world, even if no one applauds it, even if no one notices it. The impact of a soul at peace is subtle, but it is profound. You no longer ask the world to understand you, you understand yourself. You no longer wait for permission to live truthfully, you live. And in living this way, awake, present, unguarded, you fulfill the very reason you felt different from the beginning. Not to stand apart in suffering, but to stand rooted in truth. Not to escape humanity, but to bring something quietly healing back into it. This is why the chosen ones walk alone for a time. So they can remember who they are without interference. So they can hear the voice beneath all other voices. So they can return to the world not seeking to be filled, but ready to overflow. And as you take your next step, and the next, and the next, may you carry this knowing gently within you. You were never behind, never forgotten, never misplaced. You were preparing. You were listening. You were becoming. And now, without forcing, without striving, without fear, you simply allow life to move through you, freely, lovingly, and exactly as it was always meant to. Relax. Just for a moment, let the muscles in your shoulders soften. Let your breath slow down. Let the urgency that has been chasing you take a seat beside you instead of running your life. Because the very first truth your soul wants you to remember is this: you are not late. You are not behind. You are not off course. You are not missing anything that was meant for you. You are standing precisely where life has brought you for a reason that may not yet be visible to the thinking mind, but is already known by the deeper intelligence within you. So many people walk through life with a quiet anxiety humming beneath everything they do, an unspoken fear that says, I should be further along by now. I should have figured this out already. I should be someone else, somewhere else, living a different life. And without realizing it, that belief becomes a constant act of resistance against the present moment. You resist where you are. You argue with reality. You measure yourself against an imaginary timeline that the universe never agreed to follow. But the soul does not live by clocks. The soul lives by alignment. And alignment never asks, how fast are you moving? It only asks, are you present? Are you honest? Are you willing to listen? The truth is, life is not something that happens to you, it happens through you. And the moment you stop trying to outrun it, the moment you stop forcing yourself into a future that feels heavy and tense, something miraculous begins to unfold. You begin to feel carried rather than pushed, guided rather than pressured, held rather than judged. There is a wisdom orchestrating your life that is infinitely more intelligent than your worries. It does not make mistakes. It does not rush. It does not forget you. It knows exactly when each door is meant to open, and it also knows when a door must remain closed until you are ready to walk through it without fear. If you are feeling stuck right now, it is not because you have failed. It is because something in you is being refined. If you are feeling uncertain, it is not because you are lost. It is because the old map no longer applies and a deeper form of guidance is asking to take over. If you are feeling tired, it is not because you are weak. It is because you have been trying to do with effort what can only be done with trust. You see, the ego believes that growth happens through struggle, control, and constant proving. It tells you that peace comes after achievement, after validation, after success, after you finally become enough. But the soul knows something entirely different. The soul knows that peace is the starting point, not the reward. And from peace, everything else unfolds naturally. Think of a river. The river does not strain to reach the ocean. It does not panic when it encounters a bend or a rock. It does not compare itself to other rivers and wonder if it is flowing fast enough. It simply follows its nature. And because it follows its nature, it always arrives. You are no different. Every experience you have lived, every delay, every disappointment, every moment that felt like a detour has been shaping your awareness, not punishing you, not holding you back, preparing you, preparing your heart to recognize what truly matters, preparing your mind to release illusions that no longer serve you, preparing your spirit to live from a place of authenticity rather than fear. When you look back on your life, you may see moments you wish you could change, decisions you regret, paths you think you should not have taken. But from a higher perspective, nothing has been wasted. Every step has been part of your awakening, even the moments that hurt, especially the moments that hurt. Because pain has a way of breaking open the places where truth has been waiting to enter. There are no wrong turns on a path guided by consciousness. There are only lessons that deepen your capacity to love, to understand, and to let go. And letting go is where the new beginning truly begins. Let go of the idea that you must struggle to be worthy. Let go of the belief that your value depends on productivity, comparison, or approval. Let go of the habit of telling yourself that you will be at peace someday when the conditions are finally right. Because someday is a story the ego tells to avoid being present now. Now is where life is happening. Now is where healing begins. Now is where the door quietly opens. The moment you stop arguing with the present moment is the moment the present moment starts working for you instead of against you. When you say yes to where you are, without resentment and without resignation, you create space for transformation that effort alone can never produce. Acceptance is not giving up. It is aligning with truth. And the truth is this: you cannot be anywhere other than where you are meant to be in this moment. Even your confusion has purpose. Even your waiting has meaning. Even your uncertainty is fertile ground for a deeper kind of clarity that does not come from thinking, but from listening. Stillness is not empty. Stillness is intelligent. When you slow down enough to be still, you begin to hear a quieter voice beneath the noise of fear and expectation. It does not shout. It does not demand. It gently reminds you, you are safe, you are guided, you are becoming. This voice has always been with you. It was there before you learned to doubt yourself. It was there before you learned to measure your worth by outcomes. It was there before you were taught to believe that love must be earned. It is the voice of your true self. And your true self is not in a hurry. The universe does not operate on urgency. It operates on harmony. Things come together not when you force them, but when you are aligned with who you really are. And alignment happens when you relax into trust rather than tightening into fear. Ask yourself gently, what if this moment is not a mistake? What if this pause is not a delay, but an invitation? What if the very thing you have been resisting is the doorway to your next expansion? When you stop trying to escape the present, you discover that the present has been quietly trying to free you all along. Freedom does not come from changing everything around you. It comes from changing the way you see. When your perception shifts, your experience follows. When you stop seeing yourself as behind, broken, or incomplete, you begin to notice the subtle ways life has been supporting you all along. The people who drifted away were making room. The plans that fell apart were clearing space. The uncertainty was loosening your grip on an identity that could not go with you where you are going. A new beginning does not always announce itself with excitement. Sometimes it arrives as fatigue, as dissatisfaction, as a quiet sense that the old way no longer fits. This is not failure. This is evolution. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to remember who you were before fear convinced you that you were not enough. And you are enough, not because of what you will accomplish, but because of what you already are. When you live from this truth, life becomes less of a battle and more of a dialogue. You stop pushing and start cooperating. You stop chasing and start allowing. And in that allowing, opportunities arise that could never be forced. Trust does not mean you will never act. It means your actions come from clarity rather than panic, from inspiration rather than insecurity, from love rather than lack. There is an intelligence within you that knows exactly how to move forward when the time is right. Your only task is to stop drowning it out with noise and doubt. So relax. Let this moment be enough. Let yourself breathe without needing answers. Let yourself rest without guilt. Let yourself be here without judgment. Because from this place of acceptance, something extraordinary begins to grow. A calm confidence, a quiet strength, a deep knowing that you are being led, even when you cannot see the path yet. You do not need to have everything figured out to begin again. You only need to be willing to trust that life is unfolding for you, not against you. And when you look back one day, you will see that this moment, this exact moment, was not a pause in your journey. It was the moment you stopped resisting and started aligning. The moment you stopped forcing and started allowing. The moment you finally understood that peace is not the end of the path, but the beginning. Relax. You are exactly where you need to be. And something beautiful is already on its way. And as you remain here, breathing gently inside this awareness, something subtle but profound begins to reveal itself. You notice that the need to explain your life, to justify your choices, to defend your pace, starts to dissolve. There is a quiet relief in realizing that you were never required to convince the universe of your worth. The universe already knows you. It knows you beyond your resume, beyond your mistakes, beyond the stories you tell yourself late at night when doubt creeps in. It knows you as an extension of its own intelligence, temporarily expressed as a human being learning how to remember. When you truly absorb this, the tension you've been carrying loosens its grip. The mind has been working overtime, trying to predict, control, and protect. But the heart has always known that protection does not come from vigilance, it comes from alignment. The heart understands that when you are in harmony with who you are, life reorganizes itself around that truth. Circumstances shift, encounters change, opportunities appear without strain, not because you chased them, but because you became receptive to them. There is a sacred rhythm moving through everything. Seasons change without effort. The sun rises without consulting your plans. Flowers bloom without questioning their worthiness. And yet, as human beings, we often believe we must earn our right to be here. We place conditions on our peace. We tell ourselves that we will relax once we arrive somewhere else, become someone else, fix something else. But peace postponed is peace denied. And life, in its infinite compassion, keeps inviting you back to now, because now is the only place where truth can be experienced. The ego resists this simplicity. It thrives on complexity, on comparison, on endless striving. It whispers that rest is laziness, that surrender is weakness, that trust is naive. But these are the voices of fear masquerading as wisdom. True wisdom is gentle. It does not shout. It does not rush you. It simply reminds you that you are not separate from the flow of life. You are the flow, temporarily aware of itself. As this awareness deepens, you may begin to feel a softness towards your past. Not because everything that happened was easy or fair, but because you see it differently now. You see that the past was not a collection of errors, but a series of awakenings in disguise. Each moment shaped your capacity to see, to feel, to choose more consciously. Even the moments you wish had never happened carried seeds of insight that could not have grown any other way. Forgiveness, then, becomes natural. Not as a moral obligation, but as an act of self-liberation. You forgive not because others were right, but because you are ready to be free. Free from carrying old stories into new moments. Free from letting yesterday define today. Free from mistaking memory for identity. You are not what happened to you. You are not the labels you were given. You are not the roles you outgrew. You are the awareness, witnessing all of it. And awareness is spacious. It does not cling. It allows experiences to pass through, leaving behind wisdom instead of wounds. When you live from this place, you no longer fear change. Change becomes a companion rather than a threat. You understand that endings are not punishments, they are transitions. And beginnings do not require force, they require openness. This openness is a kind of courage the world rarely talks about. It is the courage to be still when everything urges you to hurry. The courage to trust when certainty is unavailable. The courage to listen inwardly when external voices grow loud. This courage does not announce itself with confidence. It reveals itself as quiet steadiness. And from this steadiness, intuition begins to speak more clearly, not as dramatic commands, but as subtle nudges. A feeling of expansion here, a sense of contraction there, a knowing that something aligns, even if it doesn't make sense yet. When you honor these signals, you are no longer navigating life through fear. You are navigating it through resonance. Life responds differently to resonance. When you act from alignment, doors open without struggle. When you speak from truth, your words carry weight without force. When you choose from love rather than fear, outcomes unfold in ways that thinking alone could never design. This is not mysticism removed from reality. This is the practical intelligence of living in harmony with your own nature. And your nature is not frantic. Your nature is not lacking. Your nature is whole. The moment you stop trying to become whole is the moment you recognize that you already are. From here, a new beginning does not feel like a dramatic leap. It feels like a gentle turning toward yourself, a willingness to honor what feels real rather than what looks impressive, a commitment to inner alignment over outer approval. This is where lasting change begins, not in pressure, but in presence. So stay here a little longer. Let the mind rest. Let the breath remind you that life is supporting you in each moment effortlessly. You are not being tested. You are being taught, not pushed, guided.